Today I was surfing YouTube as I usually do, and on my feed popped up this video of Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson titled "All Hell's Gonna Break Loose." I click it, and of course, the topic of their conversation is trans people are, mutilating children, and all hell's gonna break loose, and all this kind of yada 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 stuff. So I watched this video, and as I'm watching it, Jordan Peterson is putting out so many obscene, angry, rage-filled factoids. And I'm thinking, like, there's no way that all this stuff is true, he's saying. So here's my project. I'm going to watch this highlight, and I'm going to fact-check it throughout. All right, take it away, Jordan Peterson, who, by the way, is looking quite fresh as Two-Face. This man really said, I'm going to look like a Batman villain today on the Joe Rogan Experience. What in God's name are you wearing, dude?
Partly because you have something that marks you out from the norm, like a tilt towards autism, because a lot of the people, it was just released with the Tavistock staff. The Tavistock closed down in the UK. That was the big gender surgery performing institute in the UK.
How was that closed down? What happened?
Government closed it down.
So
yeah, because they knew that they figured out in the UK that, wow, the rates of transgender transformation requests were skyrocketing. And even the people at the clinic knew that they were rushing people along the transformation pipeline way faster than they should have without proper clinical evaluation. There's 1,000 lawsuits out against the Tavistock in the UK now. Wow. 1,000.
So Tavistock is a clinic that specializes in helping children who are gender confused. It's the only one in all of England of its kind. And I believe this hospital or clinic has been, on the national stage as they've been under scrutiny, obviously, for treating children, as you guys know, is very controversial. And the reason it was shut down after a report, the CAS review. So yeah, one of the biggest problems the report found was due to its lengthy waiting period, it was deemed unacceptable and frankly dangerous, right? Because if these kids have, having gender identity problems, it can be very dangerous for their mental health. And so their solution to that was to actually make 2 new clinics, right? So there also was some reports of saying that, the care wasn't holistic enough, that the doctors weren't considering the other potentially mental health issues at play other than kind of gender confusion and stuff like that. Yeah, so there was a rise in referrals that led to the staff being overwhelmed and recommended the creation of a network of regional hubs to provide care and support to young people. Apparently, they weren't collecting enough data either, tracking the following welfare of these kids. But ultimately, I think the main issue here was that they were just not getting to enough people. I think the main issue here was that they were working through people too fast because there was so much demand. So ultimately, Jordan Peterson is trying to make it sound like it was Frankenstein's factory where they're just chopping off body parts and sewing stuff together. The truth is that actually the result of this is that they're creating 2 clinics to create a more, effective hub for treatment. So it's like not really what you're saying at all. It's actually the opposite.
There's 1,000 lawsuits out against the Tavistock in the UK now. Wow. 1,000.
Of course, 1,000 lawsuits seems like almost comically insane, right? Like 1,000. I was trying to find any support for that. The only thing I could find is that there's a lawyer, Tom Goodhead, the chief executive of this, apparently some kind of, ambulance chasing lawyer here, said he expects at least 1,000 clients will join this action. So that's based on a lawyer doing a class action lawsuit, not 1,000 different lawsuits. And again, I don't know the real data on how many people have actually signed up for this, but that's literally just the lawyer kind of blowing hot smoke. So I like how confidently Jordan puts that forward, They're being sued by thousands. It's just one statement from an ambulance-chasing lawyer.
1,000 lawsuits out against the Tavistock in the UK now. Wow. 1,000.
Is it true to say that you're expecting around 1,000 former patients to join this class action?
Yes, I mean, it's hard to put a precise number on it now, but we run over 25 very large class actions from our firm, and we've got decades and decades of experience.
Now, I don't know. Listen, I've worked with a lot of lawyers. I know they like to sit in front of bookshelves and stuff to look important. This man's just sitting in front of a whiskey bottle, so I respect that, man. Good for you, bro. He's got 3 bottles of alcohol right there. Hell no, dude. We ain't reading books. We just hitting the sauce.
In the size of
good head, more like drunk head. Okay.
So what is the difference between the way the UK is processing this versus the way we are?
Well, we're still where the UK was 3 or 4 years ago. We haven't woken up to the fact that, all hell's going to break loose on this front with people like Chloe Cole, launching lawsuits. That's the only.
Okay, so again, so now he mentions Chloe Cole, and this was an interesting one to look into. So Chloe Cole is an activist, an anti-transgender activist and detransitioner who's been going on tour of Fox News and these kinds of media outlets. So this girl is 18 years old and transitioned as a young person. Chloe Cole is a former trans kid who detransitioned after undergoing years of puberty blockers and an irreversible double mastectomy at age 15. Obviously, giving a double mastectomy at age 15 is pretty serious business. I would assume that there was some kind of threat of unaliving or something to warrant that level of intervention at that young of an age. But I just don't know, right? I don't know the story. What's interesting is I've been reading a lot about her and seeing her on Fox News talking to Tucker Carlson. If you go down to this Slate article, you can find out about Chloe Cole. They says there are detransitioned people whose stories have been presented that way by reporters, but the stories that go viral turn out to have been cleaned up, the untidy bits, where the detransitioned person explains they believe they experience gender dysphoria the same way other trans people do and decided to detransition due to their newfound moral or ideological beliefs. This group includes Chloe Cole. So it does add a little bit of an interesting film over it when you realize it's because they found God or something and fell in with the crowd that says, oh, being trans is inherently evil. She's denouncing gender-affirming care at all, right? So she's against all trans care, it sounds like. She testified during a Florida bill that would deny Medicaid coverage for any form of gender-affirming care for any trans people, right? So that's a little crazy, right? How you going to advocate against all gender-affirming treatment for any age? Like, that's silly, right? It's okay, Jordan.
Only thing that's ever going to stop this.
Lawsuits,
absolutely. Yeah. Or jail sentences. So, it's absolutely appalling. This is part of the reason that I felt like I've been at war for 6 months.
It's so crazy that what you're saying here, although it's backed by the literature, it's obvious you have an expertise in this area. Mm-hmm. That this is labeled as transphobic.
Yeah. I love Jordan Peterson is the expert in trans issues. Well, the reason that someone might say is transphobic, in fact, I'd be willing to say that, it's either intentionally or ignorantly, negligently misleading. It's dishonest, right? And so wouldn't that be considered transphobic? But I defer to Jordan Peterson, the expert in trans issues.
Yeah,
this is a transphobic
Well, it's even worse than that, because the data, and this was known, let's say 10 years ago before this all became an issue. Ken Zucker in Toronto, he was the world's leading authority on transgenderism. You know, he divided it into two parts. There's the autogynephilic types. Those are the guys who get sexual kicks from dressing up in women's clothing and then go do drag queen story hour. Say, well, we're just, you know, pristine and pure. It's like, no, you're not. You're getting a sexual kick from dressing up in women's clothing. And let's not bloody well forget it. And
Now, he gets so
you can't even say that now, but
he gets so angry, right? I find it so interesting. Like, I don't know that you're right there, Jordan. I think you're expressing an opinion. I mean, drag queen, I don't think is necessarily a sexual thing. I mean, if you type drag queen and go to Google results, they're just fabulous, Jordan. And obviously being fabulous seems to somehow offend or scare you.
clinical reality. Now it's become verboten to even suggest such a thing. Oh, there's nothing sexual about this. It's like, yeah, right. You're dressing up in lingerie before your mirror at home, tucking your dick between your legs, imagining you have a vagina for sexual kick. Oh, there's nothing sexual about that.
Dude, Jordan, you're way too deep into this, bro. Oh, you're just sitting at home, tucking your dick between your legs, imagining you've got a mangina. I used to do that as a young man. It terrified me. I'd wonder where'd my dick had gone. My wife walked in on me one time with a dick tucked between my legs. She said, "My God, man, what happened to your penis?" Dude, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about at this point. You're just off the rails.
Documenting autogynephilia. Reality. Now it's become verboten to even suggest such a thing. Oh, there's nothing sexual about this. It's like, yeah, right. You're dressing up in lingerie before your mirror at home, tucking your dick between your legs, imagining you have a vagina for sexual kick. Oh, there was nothing.
Dude, that's awesome. I don't even know how to respond to that. I assume he's talking about drag people again, people who do drag. I don't know if they tape their dick back, so to speak, and pretend they have a vagina. I don't know the details of that. But that's not necessarily a sexual thing, right? I mean, Jordan can't conceive of that, though. So, y'all are deviants.
Sexual about that. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Bloody
right.
Absolute liars.
Yeah,
now,
right. I was fully turned on. Do you know how hard it is to tuck a boner back and pretend you have a vagina? It's horrifying. It's painful. I was turned on, by golly. My wife walked in on me, my fully torqued cock pointing right back at her. She said, "My God, man, your penis is going the wrong way." Terrified her. But man, that was hot.
Then you have the kids who don't fit in on the gender front. That's a different pathway. But with them, if you leave them alone, so do no harm, leave them alone. 90% of them accept their body, their sex, by age 18 or 19.
This is an outrageous claim that I couldn't even find a single source to support. I mean, all the evidence really shows the exact opposite. Here's a New York Times article. Few transgender children change their minds after 5 years. This article claims that they found that 2.5% of the group had reverted to identifying as the gender they were assigned at birth. So this is like an outright psychotic lie. 90%? That's insane. I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about. What is he referring to? This clip has 3.2 million views, and it really explains why. And it really explains why trans people are becoming, the biggest target of hate crimes.
Yeah, and here, let's add something equally ugly to it, since we haven't gone far enough yet. So here, we'll do a little bit of arithmetic. So a while back, Disney executive mentioned on video, this is when Florida went after Disney, it was all when this was happening. She came out and said, I think she was head of domestic programming for Disney. She said, well, I have two children, 5 and 7. One is trans and the other is pansexual. And I just thought mathematically right away, it's like the chance you have a trans kid is 1 in 3,000. That's not a very high chance. And let's say the chance that you have a pansexual kid is the same, whatever pansexual means. I don't even know how to calculate those odds. But
What does pansexual even mean? By the way, I'm an expert in trans issues. What does pansexual even mean? It's not that complicated. I mean, it's like, it just means you're attracted to people irregardless of gender. Which actually, to be honest, the label's pretty open. It's probably not that rare when you think about kind of the broadness of that category. Hey, Alfredo. Hey, Shredder. What are the chances? What even is pansexual?
whatever that is rarer than trans, because no one ever even heard about it until 5 years ago.
It's rarer than trans. It's like this super rare thing that nobody's ever heard of. Pansexual. What does it mean? You're a pan? What, am I going to fry an egg in you? My God. It's rare. It's illness. My wife struck me with a pan once. I've never forgiven her. Now I hate the pansexuals. Reminds me of that horrible fight.
So the joint probability that you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid is 1 in 9 million.
1 in 9 trillion. The chances of having a pansexual and trans child is 1 in 900 trillion. Do the numbers on that, bucko.
The odds that you're a pathological narcissist sacrificing your own children to the glorification of your compassion is 8,999,999 to 1.
Okay.
So, like, do you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid, or are you a devouring mother? Well,
oh, by the way, so I looked into this because it sounded a little far-fetched, right? And what I found was it was hard to find anything about this that wasn't on, like, explicitly underground conservative publications. It was some kind of scandal. Let's see. Disney executive who's the mother of a trans and pansexual child says she wants at least half of all future characters to be LGBTQ or racial minorities. I did not find any receipts for that. Theme parks banned from saying hello, boys and girls. I did not find any receipts for that. They referenced this Disney site called Reimagine Tomorrow, which I guess is kind of about what they're doing to better represent diversity throughout their IPs. Here it says, at Disney, Inclusions for Everyone, Reimagine Tomorrow is our way of amplifying unrepresented voices and untold stories, as well as championing the importance of accurate representation in media and entertainment. Here, let's read their intentions, okay? Because they reference this website. The more our customers worldwide are reflected in our workforce, the better we're able to serve them authentically. When our employees perceive that Disney culture supports their professional development and advancement, they can be authentic, contribute freely, and take pride in our company. Here, we are committed to inspiring a more inclusive world by reimagining the way we tell stories and who tells them. Our intention is to broaden access and diversity to our industry by adopting inclusion standards across Disney general entertainment and live-action studio productions by the end of 2022, with the goal of advancing representation in front of and behind the camera in marketing and more. That's all it says. They also say they're making a $100 million donation, serving underrepresented communities. We are ensuring that we direct more than 50% of our annual charitable givings to programs serving underrepresented communities. This is the only reference to 50% I could find, which is them saying they want to donate. But as far as some kind of checklist that all characters must be diverse or trans, they don't even mention trans here. It's about more like racial diversity and, I mean, yes, sexual diversity too, but they're really inventing something. This is craziness. So here's the videos that got leaked. This seems like some kind of Project Veritas hit job thing, but let's take a look at the video.
I'm here as a mother of two queer children, actually, one transgender child and one pansexual child.
The odds of that are insane, astronomical. You're far more likely a devouring mom, like in Hansel and Gretel. The witch, she wants to eat the kids literally. That's you. Just own it.
Is true. We have many.
You know, this conversation goes on, and I think it's the stat that really disturbed him. It's impossible to have two queer children. There's no report of that ever happening in the history of humankind. And then this one, I think, really riled them up. She says she has a not at all secret gay agenda, which they perceived as a secret gay agenda. Let's take a look.
It's like I love Disney's content. I grew up watching, all of the classics. They have been a huge, informative part of my life. But at the same time, I worked at small studios most of my career, and I'd heard, you hear whispers. I'd heard things like, oh, they won't let you show this at a Disney show. And I'm like, okay. So I was a little sus when I started. But then my experience was bafflingly the opposite of what I had heard on my little pocket of proud family Disney TVA. The showrunners were super welcoming. Meredith Roberts and our leadership over there has been so welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda. And so I feel
She said not at all secret gay agenda. It's a big secret. It's funny. She's like, yeah, I'm openly advocating for more gay representation in Disney shows. It's a secret agenda. I mean, it's probably her job, right? To do that.
has been so.
So there's this, apparently this was like a big culture war scoop in the conservative world.
You can look at the odds and decide for yourself.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah. No kidding. Look, man, Freud was no dummy when he pointed to the fact that the devouring
From here, he just goes so off the rails, dude. It's wild.
mother was one of the major impediments to proper human development. He knew that, looking deep into the darkest families and seeing this proclivity of the overprotective mother to destroy the developing.
He said that the odds of having a devouring mother who wants to sacrifice her kids to show how compassionate she is 1 in 9 million. But at the same time, it was such a powerful archetype. Freud talked about it, and it was in the fairy tales. Everybody knew about this 1 in 9 million diagnosis. Toxic femininity.
Integrity of the child, to keep the child infantile, to cling to that relationship instead of developing a life for herself and letting the child go flourish. That's Hansel and Gretel, right? You're lost in the woods. Why? Well,
This is a weird analogy because he's saying there's parents that don't want their kids to grow up. I think that's an emotion that's pretty common that a lot of parents can relate to. And I don't think I think people can be pathological with it, but I think as it's probably occurred to most people oh, I just wish I could freeze you in time. You're so perfect the way you are right now. But ultimately, what the fuck does that have to do with having a trans or pansexual child? What are you even talking about?
your family's broken up. You have an evil stepmother. So now you're lost in the woods. What's your abuse rate if you have a step parent? 100 times normal. So you're lost in the woods. Well, what happens?
Fuck are you talking about?
You come across a gingerbread house. That's pretty damn convenient.
Dude, this is like a bit. You come across a gingerbread house. Oh, that's pretty convenient. The odds of being abused by a step parent is 1,000 times higher. Then all of a sudden your house is made of gingerbread.
You need a house.
Right?
It's more than you could even hope for. It's not just a house.
Oh.
It's a house made out of candy.
It's a house made out of candy.
What's inside a house made out of candy?
What's inside
a witch who wants to fatten you up and eat you.
She wants to eat you.
And that's the devouring mother.
And that's why It's impossible to have a trans and pans child, Joe.
That's an old fairy tale. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and so, you know, we could dwell on that for a minute too. One of the things we won't honestly discuss in our society, one of many, is the fundamental nature of female political psychopathology. You know, and there's male political psychopathology.
These women be crazy. These women be shopping. We've talked enough about male toxic masculinity. What we haven't talked about enough is these goddamn women be shopping.
Obviously, that's what the feminists complain about all the time when they talk about the oppressive patriarchy, you know, toxic masculinity. There's no shortage of toxic masculinity. So is there any toxic femininity? Well, not if the feminine is just the, you know, oppressed virgin goddess whose nature, but how about we don't live in that fantasy world? And we know, yeah, there's female political pathology, the tendency to infantilize everyone, and the tendency to assume that everyone who doesn't go along with the infantilization.
Bro, I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about. Like infantile, like I don't really know anybody like that. And I don't even know how it relates to this Disney executive who says her kids are trans and pansexual. What does that have to do with infantilizing them? Makes no sense. What are you on about, Jordan? Did you have some apple cider this morning, man? Quick, take a Xanax. He's spiraling.
And the tendency to assume that everyone who doesn't go along with the infantilization is properly characterized as...
I like how he's like, toxic, he cries, toxic masculinity, what a horrible word. And then next day he's like, let's talk about toxic females. They're trying to infantile everybody. And the ginger house is it's made of candy. And you know what's in the gingerbread house? A witch. And she wants to eat you. It's fucking psychobabble.
As a predator. And so, you know, you wonder why are the universities turning into extended daycares? Well, a lot of the reason for that is that women who don't have anything better to do are turning the university students into the infants they never had.
What the fuck are you talking about, bro? Yeah, so this was apparently a super interesting high-level conversation. The comments obviously hate him. They think he's a genius. We have to protect the kids. This is gold. So spot on. You know. So this is why people hate trans people. You know, this is the biggest podcast in the world. 10 million views per episode. This clip alone has 3.2 million views. This is why people hate trans people. This is it right here. They say I'm transphobic. Never mind me taking right-wing conservative propaganda talking points. What's transphobic about that? And misrepresenting facts. Honestly, I think Jordan Peterson knows that this trans thing is just his meal ticket, right? That's how he became famous with the, I will not say your pronouns no matter what. That's what made him famous. And now, you know, he went down the self-help route, which was pretty good for him. But the trans thing, right? Hating trans people is where his bread and butter is. This is, you know, at his core, what he's all about. So it's a return to a tradition as he loves. Anyway, I don't know. Just a little something I put together. So watch out for that gingerbread house in the forest. It's made of candy, but there's a witch inside. She's the devouring female. And I put my dick between my legs, pretended I had a vagina. My God.